So yeah, this kind of came out of nowhere. At the end of last week, Palworld has arrived, and it's not really a digital Foundry game. We have got a video coming on it, probably out now actually, based on the Xbox versions of the game. We're going to be talking primarily about PC here because, well, at the beginning of the week, John put out a 55-minute video exclusively for supporters of the DF supporter program, and having watched it, it's probably best that that is the case.
Yeah.
Um, I'm going to go to you first about this, John, because, well, for those, including myself, who haven't played it, what is this thing? Why should I be interested? And why has it sold upwards of 6 million copies?
I mean, you, Rich, specifically, I think there is zero reason for you to be interested. You will not like this game. But
Okay.
as for everybody else, well, having played a bunch myself, I think it's pretty obvious why it's appealing, and I can see its success, and it's pretty savvy on the part of the developers, I'd say, there, because they've basically combined a lot of things that people love, including one that has arguably been struggling. So obviously there's the Pokemon side of things, which is the cute little creatures. Those games, I don't play Pokemon games. I've never played through one ever, but they're very popular to some degree because in recent years they've been having a lot of issues, technical issues, design issues. There's been some good stuff from what I understand, but it kind of feels like the series is struggling a little bit right now. And
Right.
so people are kind of not happy with those types of games at the moment necessarily. So by offering, there have been other games like this though, like Cassette Beasts, for which I understand is really good. But this is characters that look very much like the Pokemons, only they're called pals, but they're pretty much the same thing, let's be honest. So that's automatically gets people interested. Secondly, this is another one of those early access survival games. And I've made it pretty clear that I don't like survival games at all, but I respect that people love them, and I can understand completely why people love them, because it's almost like, I think back to like when I was a kid, you'd like build like a fort, like we built like a tree fort and we're collecting stuff and building stuff and physically made this place. And I did that with friends up in a tree, and it was fun. And I feel like, especially with friends online, it kind of recreates that experience of just exploring these worlds. And it's a big, colorful world with a nice, like it's got a decent aesthetic to it and a nice view distance that kind of gives you the sense of scale. That's cool. And just that idea of exploring this place with your friends, capturing monsters, and sort of making your fort is cool. And the way they sort of improve it here is like, as you capture the quote unquote Pokemon, the pals, you can put them to work in your slave camp and they can build your fort for you, which admittedly, so I didn't, in my hour video, I hadn't figured that out yet. So the hour video was literally just the first time I ever played the game. And I thought it would be funny to capture myself playing it because famously I don't like these games. So I was like, well, this will be a good time. And it
Well,
was.
you don't seem to like the pals either, because
No.
you kept punching them for some reason and throwing them off mountains.
That was when I discovered the good stuff in this game for myself. Aside from that was everything's got physics, and it's just real silly because the pals themselves aesthetically don't gel with the world at all. So it just looks completely out of place, which is funny, actually, especially once you get guns and stuff in here. It's like I think that's the shocking thing that gets people excited is they see, wait, it's like Pokemon with guns and it looks like it's just madness, right? So you combine all that. For me, though, it's like, yeah, punching dudes, sending them. I was enjoying kicking them around with physics, and then discovering there's like a wanted system like Grand Theft Auto, and like police and military comes out hunting for you if you hurt any of the humans. But then apparently you can also capture the humans in a ball, the PAL ball or whatever they call it, and so it's just
Palsphere, John.
Palsphere.
Please.
So it almost feels like they like broke the rules out of like the rules of engagement for this kind of stuff. Like Nintendo would never let you go around punching Pokemon and throw their corpses around, you with ragdoll physics and arm them with weapons. And it kind of feels like again, like the childhood fantasy of you're playing with toys. You're like, I'm going to take the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles with the GI Joes and the real Ghostbusters and put them all together, and then I'm going to melt them with like a magnifying glass. It kind of has that appeal to it, right? Which also aligns,
freeform, sandboxy,
I would say, with popular stuff like Roblox, which is all about creativity and doing stuff to a degree. Fortnite, I guess, Minecraft, like it taps into that sort of creativity angle that people love. And when you have that, you have friends, you have Pokemon like things. Yeah, people are going to love it. And they absolutely do. Obviously, like I said, I can appreciate this more than like Ark. Like I know what Ark's doing. I can understand why that's popular as well, but boy, do I hate playing Ark. It's just this, and that's possibly why this works better, because it takes a lot of those Ark things and sort of distills it down into something that's like a lot easier to deal with. Like Ark, if you go through its menus, you're just like, is this like SAP or like some sort of like, is this a Novia? Like, what's going on here? Like, just in terms of like,
what am I playing?
Like, what am I even playing? It's just like menus of crap, and you got to figure this stuff out, and it ain't fun for me anyway. This simplifies that, and it just kind of makes it immediate in a way that makes sense. So,
I mean, I haven't played these games, but there is something a bit disturbing about capturing creatures and forcing them to do your bidding. And that's
Pokemon's always been that way, though.
Well, that's my point, right? Yeah. But I watched a bit of John's video where he's basically abusing them. And I note that PETA have put out a statement on Palworld, which reads as follows: PETA has already heard from many Palworld fans who have no interest in eating pals. You can eat them.
I don't know. I didn't try that. Probably.
And they want a vegan guide created for the game. It's veganary after all.
Oh my God, are you kidding?
And gamers want to help animals by eating vegan in their game worlds and outside. And this article from Game Rant, I just did a Google, it popped up. It's worth noting that the statement from PETA seems concerned only with eating pals, even though there are a few other potentially distasteful activities available to do in Palworld. In addition to the aforementioned slaughter of pals, captured animals are put to work in what essentially amount to unpaid labour camps.
Absolutely.
With their only recompense being a fluffy bed and some grub. Furthermore, even human NPCs can be captured in Palworld in the same manner as animals.
It is a slave trade game, basically. That's what it's all about. So,
well, 6 million plus copies sold.
It shows.
It reminded me of like Mother Base in Metal Gear Solid 5, with you can like Fulton extract people to work at your base.
Yeah, that was always slightly dodgy, wasn't it?
Yeah, that came earlier, but yeah, it was also in MGS5, and that stuff is weird. But being able to create slaves out of the pals really is the secret to making the game more fun, because like when I first had to bust out another effing crafting table and start banging on rocks, I was like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. I hate crafting tables. Like, go away. But eventually you can actually kind of overcome some of those annoying things, and yeah, you still got to craft to a degree, but it does automate some things and make it more palatable, I guess. Palatable. Ooh.
Right. I mean, isn't the real reason this is successful is down to the fact that you can't buy Pokemon on anything other than a Nintendo machine?
I would say that's a tricky one, because yes, obviously the Pokemon like creatures are a big draw, and obviously there's hunger for that on other machines, but this game is not Pokemon at all. It really is not. I mean, literally the only similarity is the way the creatures look and the act of capturing them. But Pokemon is a more traditional Japanese style role-playing game, like a turn-based role-playing game. And this is Ark Survival Evolved with Pokemon. 100% is what this is. Just sort of distilled and simplified in a way. So,
And the GTA Riot Police.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so that stuff, that's weird. And of course, this is an Unreal Engine game, Unreal Engine 5 even, but it is not using any of those features like we've kind of commonly seen. And it's probably for the better, because it doesn't exactly run that well. And they have
I've watched Tom's console video.
For the way it looks, the performance is incredible.
He was very kind to it. I would consider that an affront to the console hardware. from a technological perspective.
Dude, that Xbox One version, like, holy moly, that's what you would have expected. The Xbox One version looks like what I would label a bad Switch port. So I can't even imagine what this would be like on Switch. Are we talking like 240p at like 15 FPS? You know, that's that.
Well, who knows?
I would expect if they ported this to Switch, it would actually look and run worse than that original Arc port. Like, I think it would. I think it's that bad. It's severely bad. It probably should not have been released on Xbox One, given that. But hey, I guess people will play it there anyway. And even then, even if you're playing on the Series X, like, it just doesn't run well at all. Like, and I guess they technically have the excuse of it being early access, and I say excuse only because their prior game is like 4 years old and it's never come out of early access, so you can kind of use early access as a shield from criticism. But this is just brand new, so I'll give them that for now. But it's currently very unoptimized, and it doesn't feel very coherent either visually. Like, some okay stuff, but I mean, I don't want to criticize them for using like asset store assets because it's what it's for, right? But it does feel kind of cobbled together in a way that doesn't work for me.
Yeah,
so
I
much,
mean,
you know?
here's the thing, right, John? I mean, if you're basically buying assets from the store, I mean, again, I'm referring to Tom's console video here.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's better on PC, but well, the assets don't actually seem to materialize in game. You've got these like super low res quality textures. It's like you bought them, why not use them?
Well, I mean, they are using them, just maybe they're not that. And that's part of the problem is the way they're scaled up and placed. There's like a mismatch between quality all over the place, where like some types of things look good, other parts do not look good, and they're all kind of jammed together. And there's a lot of issues with like collision detection and such, like where you're climbing on stuff and you can see like the collision mesh doesn't like align at all with what the world geometry is, so you're just like climbing on air, and the whole thing just feels really unpolished. But again, small team, early access, you know, like nobody should expect like AAA polish here. But so that's weird. I can't speak to how they made it anymore. Everybody's trying to figure that out still, but I will say that it is kind of cool that a small studio can kind of come out of nowhere and play with the big boys like this. And I respect that.
Oh, that's
and
cool as heck.
I feel I'm happy for those guys in that regard, right? Like, this was clearly not one of those designed by committee kind of things. Like, these guys wanted to make this thing, and they did, and it turned out to be successful. And it is kind of the pipe dream thing. I think any indie would love to have this kind of success. It's very, 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 very rare, but when it does happen, it's like, you know, winning the lottery.
Yeah.
So good for them.
I was curious what you think. So obviously, part of the controversy about this, even though it's being celebrated widely, is also the fact that it is using designs that evoke extremely what we've seen in Pokemon for the last 20 plus years. I was curious, where do you draw, all of you, the line between like homage, Doom clone, because it's not the first time we've seen this in the video game industry in popular releases, or I don't know. I'm curious what you all think about, like, how much can you actually crib off of another game's visual style?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, that's interesting because we got a supporter question here from 1040 STF. Well, it's actually got two. The first one was Palworld. That's it. That's the question. But the actual question is, there's a whole debate on social medias and in the news since a few days about the thin line between a game copying other ones and a game getting inspired by other ones. On what side do you think Palworld sits? Well, it sounds to me, John, like it's like just a grab bag of ideas from other games, which happens to include 111 beasts that have certain similarities to Pokemon.
Yeah, and this is
the thing, right? I mean, obviously, I've seen a lot of discourse online and a lot of comparisons and mesh head-to-heads and whatnot, which do look pretty sort of damning. But on the other side, this is the sort of thing where to make any kind of definitive statement, you actually should have the first-hand knowledge of it.
Correct.
And, you know, it's difficult to actually, you know, call it a rip-off right now unless you're sort of, from our perspective, personally qualified to actually make that distinction.
100%.
Yeah.
So, yeah, exactly. I'm with you. I'm not willing to make a call on this anymore. Like, there was points in this discussion where like, oh, this evidence seems to be convincing, but then you'd see something else that suggests otherwise. So after this week, I've decided, you know what, I'm going to hold off on any additional like thoughts in terms of the origins of it, how it was made, because frankly, I just don't know. We don't know enough yet, and I don't know if we'll ever know, and it's tough to say. So that's not really our battle, I suppose. I hope that they didn't actually rip anything off. I can't say one way or the other, but there's no doubt that there's a pretty striking similarity to many of the designs. I mean, the best evidence I saw was like there was stuff where they pulled out the bone structure, and the way the bone structure lines up with the different creatures it's definitely eyebrow raising. You're like, and it's pretty clear that whoever made these creatures was a very big fan of Pokemon.
I don't find that so bad on a little level, because, so for example, like I know when first person shooters are being made, some people literally import Quake models and Quake like movement code to get like a good feeling at first for like enemy size and placement on around levels. Like one of your favorite games from last year, John,
Bomb Rush Cyberpunk.
Bomb Rush.
It's extremely Jet Set Radio.
Yeah, to the point where like it looks like a sequel to the game.
It does.
It looks like a sequel to the game,
which was the entire purpose, of course.
Yes.
Which is so there's the phrase like love letter,
and that, exactly. I thought about that with that game too.
And like it's so wishy-washy. And for me, if it was another big company, like if Epic made a game that was Pokemon, I would be like, this is pretty distasteful. But since they're such a small little kind of no-name 26-person studio, like, I don't know. I don't feel so bad about the designs being, as I said earlier, cribbed.
I think there's two sides to that coin. There's the personal opinion on what you personally find okay, and then there's the legal matter. And none of us can really speak to the legal side of things and whether any of this is actually an issue. We can just share our opinions on what bothers us personally, which is going to vary from person to person. And I don't want artists to be ripped off. I think that sucks, but it's really hard to determine. Just I struggle with drawing that line as well. So
there are processes. I mean, we've got this story here from Video Games Chronicle saying the Pokemon Company is investigating, quote unquote, investigating Palworld. This question from Daniel Schaefer: who wants to make a betting pool on how quickly Nintendo will take down Palworld? I've got $5 Pokemon on within the month. Again, this is all stuff that, there are processes, and, that will happen, and we'll see what the outcome is. Nexus Mods are kind of like on red alert for Pokemon mods, which would just basically put Pokemon in the game.
Which already happened.
And let's not go down there. I've got this question here from some guy person. I mean, let's just, remind people here that, basically the beginning of the week, John, you sat down, played the game for 55 minutes, did a running commentary of what happened, and then you put it online for supporters. And this question from some guy person regarding John versus Palworld video, I have to ask a question. Does John normally just punch all the friendly NPCs just to see what happens? Is it in John's nature to ignore what the big box of text in the HUD tells him to do?
Yes.
Or is all this connected to John not liking games in this genre? Is John the Darth Vader to Rich's Palpatine?
Actually, it's the last point. No, actually, the thing is it would say things in the menu box, and it's just like it doesn't exactly say like, oh yeah, go to this is the key you press when you're playing a PC game like this, and it's just like go to this thing. I don't know. So but yeah, I was not admittedly just having a laugh trying to poke.
I did enjoy. There was a point another supporter made on your video about how you criticized the texture quality, and you'd left the textures on like media.
No, it was on high.
It was on high.
That was the high preset. It was the ultra preset, is what it was, right. And I guess it just put the textures at high. I need to see if it for some reason, but I need to see if it actually goes above high.
Okay,
I'm not sure, but I actually didn't even note it. Like I was just. Because it was the first contest.
Well, this is the thing, right? I mean, this is the difference between doing like just a a video where you just sit about playing a game for 55 minutes versus a piece of DF content
Correct.
that requires a certain degree of due
There's a
diligence.
difference.
That is why it is just a Patreon video, because it was literally just first impressions, first time ever playing the game. And that,
Yeah.
I actually had so much fun doing it though, that I feel like I'm going to do this more often, just to like play random stuff like this, just record my stream of consciousness thoughts as it goes, because it's pretty funny. And it also lets you kind of just like unleash a little bit and have fun. You know, don't have to worry about censoring any curse words or anything. Just get in there and have a good old time rolling the Pokemon down the stairs, seeing how far they go.
You also don't need to worry about people on Twitter getting outraged.
Oh my God.
Yeah, exactly. That's also good. So this was a very refreshing video to make without any didn't need to be cautious with anything, just have fun. And I did have some fun in the end. And it just with the whole ridiculousness. The only time I didn't like it was when the sun sets, and I really hate those mechanics with, and that's part of survival games with the staying warm and everything's super like it just I find it stupid. But for me, not to knock the game itself, like that's part of, I know that's part of the
entire
experience.
genre.
For me though, it's like I don't want to do that. It's just let me skip that. But yeah. But considering I don't like survival games, I had more fun with this than usual, I'll admit.
Okay, so is it like 2 arcs duct taped together?
Yeah, it's like 2 arcs duct taped together with a Pokemon stapled to the side, basically. Is how I feel it, you know.
Okay.
So it's yeah.
I'm still not quite sure why it sold 6 million copies, but fair enough.
I mean,
I love this kind of element of unpredictability in the games marketplace, where something like this could happen.
I know,
and nobody really understands why.
I mean,
okay, this actually gets to the one negative side to this. When this type of success happens, and I hate when this happens, and I get why it happens, you start to see there's going to be people that are now like, oh, we need to pitch these projects, right? They're going to go back, spend 2 to 3 years working on this type of game, and it's going to come out, and most of them are going to fail, and they're not going to be good, and they're going to just miss what made this popular. I mean, survival games, nothing new, but I feel like there's going to be there's got to be some people that are looking at this and saying, how can we leverage that in our game? And I think that's a bad idea. That just doesn't usually work. Like we're on the cusp of Suicide Squad coming out, which is a game that is kind of built on, the once popularity of a certain type of game, the Destiny style game. That's not going well right now, and we don't know it.
Yeah, not even for Destiny.
Not even for Destiny, and I don't know what's going to happen with that game. I don't know if it's going to be good or bad. I can't say that yet. We don't know, but I do. It's a weird situation. That's especially in this current day market with the way things are going. You look at that, and you're just like, oh man, it's a shame that they put all their eggs into this like flash in the pan sort of like concept. We already saw the cautionary tale of stuff like Avengers and many others. So I don't want to see more Palworld knockoffs. And also I think the Pokemon company or Game Freak can learn some things maybe about what people want, but I don't think Pokemon necessarily needs to become a survival game either. Even if there are some elements here that maybe people would want in Pokemon, it just feels like that would be a weird direction to go.
Okay, fair enough. Well, it's currently available on Steam Early Access. It's also on Games Pass, I believe.
That's how I played it.
Which is that.
And the PC version was missing stuff on the Games Pass version. Like DLSS was grayed out, not available on Game Pass, but it was in the Steam version as one example.
I've heard that about a few games.
That's a common thing.
That seems to be happening
actually.
more and more, and I'm not really sure why.
Well, I think we'll need to look into that because some people are getting quite upset about that, and I think quite
rightfully
so.
So. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, the only other thing now is that it's there is talk that it might eventually come onto PlayStation, but it's early days at the moment. I think that's all we really got to say about Palworld at the moment.
Well, Rich, do you think it's going to come to Switch?
I find the possibility uninteresting.
Well, maybe Switch.
Yeah, distasteful.
Maybe the next Switch. Maybe the next Switch.
Yeah, and sort of reliant on whether the game is actually IP friendly with both.
Right, yeah.